Welcome to a series of videos called The Waterfall Journey. We're now going to explore God's relationship with his people, his children. It starts as ever with God. God's desire for a family, which flows again out of God being love and wanting to share that love. And God created man in his image. That's an incredible thing to say. Here is God who designed us to be his children. So when we look at each other, we're actually looking at one another who have within us the DNA of our Father in heaven. But God had a special place to put his children. He put us in Eden. In Eden, you see again all the fullness of everything that God has for his children. He creates a world of wonder and colour, of light and sound, of smells, of tastes, things to delight. He wanted to give the best for his children. And the best of all, he wanted to have a relationship with his children, a relationship that showed the love that he felt. So God created a specific place and put Adam inside there. We see the relationship that God had. It was a relationship where God provided everything that Adam needed. All the surroundings were to sustain him. And he shared his life with Adam. He would come and walk and talk in the cool of the evening and share. But more than that, we see a picture of a God who wanted to involve his children in his work. So when we see the naming of the animals, we see something of that cooperative venture that God had in mind. It must have been a wonderful day. It must have been full of fun. The father says to Adam, "You sit down there and I will bring out from behind the bushes animals for you to name." I bet they enjoyed themselves that day. Just think, a hippopotamus comes out, a giraffe, a crocodile, all the wonder of the nature coming out. But you know, it was a joint enterprise because God was creating the animal. But when you name something, you set something of its character. So this was a joint venture and showed what God had in mind for his people down the road. When they finished naming the animals, it was obvious that the one thing that Adam didn't have was a partner for himself. And again, the father was the provider. "Go to sleep, Adam. You sleep." And while he's asleep, God takes a rib and creates woman, Eve, to be his partner. For every need, God was there. There was an absolute trust and harmony between the father and his children. There are three crucial areas that were sustained by God as Adam and Eve walked in Eden. First of all, they knew that they were loved and that they belonged. They knew they were home. They knew they were secure. They knew that this was their place. They knew they had value and worth. And they knew this because they could see the trouble that the Father had been to create the world in which he'd put them. They could see the worth that he had in his eyes as he looked at them. The things that he trusted them with, the way that he wanted to spend time with them, sharing their day, sharing their world. And life had meaning and purpose. They had work to do. We've already mentioned that first commission that God gave, that when they had grown, when they had multiplied, they were to go out beyond the boundaries of Eden and subdue the world where the devil roamed. Light would overcome darkness. So into this place of harmony and love and light, there was only one prohibition.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 16. You are free to eat from any tree of the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for on the day you eat from it, you will certainly die.
They could eat from any tree, the tree of life, any of the other trees, but not this one tree. But actually that wasn't a problem, because there were so many other trees and so much goodness around that they were not focused on that particular tree they were prohibited from. Until into this place of harmony and trust, the devil comes in the form of a serpent. And he sows doubt in the minds of Adam and Eve about God's goodness. What he said was,
Did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden?
well, he'd exaggerated. And when Eve answered that question, she was able to repeat exactly what God had said to them. Yes, you can eat from any tree in the garden, but not that one. Not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the devil comes back with that one.
No, you will not die, the serpent said to the woman. In fact, God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
Now, until that moment, Eve and Adam had not focused on that tree, that particular tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But now their eyes turned, and they looked at that tree. And they looked at the fruit, and it looked good. It says,
Then the woman saw the tree was good for food and delightful to look at, and that it was desirable for obtaining wisdom. So she took some of its fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened.
What the devil had done was to sow a seed of doubt and then focus them on what they might be missing. The question in their mind was, what was God holding back? Here was something good. The seed of doubt went into their mind, but it was their breaking that prohibition that God had said, disobeying, the act of rebellion when they ate of that fruit, that broke immediately the trust that had been between the father and his children. We're going to find there were some immediate consequences for that. But what it did mean was that the father was going to need to put them out of Eden, because he dare not let them eat of the tree of life, or then in that fallen state they would have been that way for eternity. So in order to save them from that, he put them outside. Outside, things changed. Outside, with the trust, the relationship broken. Outside, instead of being filled with this love, because what was happening in Eden was that the love of the Father was flowing down to them, heart to heart. This is the waterfall that underpins this journey. It's the waterfall of love. It's the river of water of life that flows from the throne of heaven to the earth below, drenching through Adam and Eve. So they were filled, sustained with everything while they were in Eden. Now outside, things are different. They're not in this full flow. The devil has broken off this flow of trust, broken off the flow of the Spirit, because that's the spiritual death that God was talking of. That out of that relationship outside, there was now going to be thirst, there was going to be emptiness. And the whole circumstance of where they lived changed. So instead of now feeling topped up and full of love and belonging, knowing that they were secure, outside they're alone, they're isolated, they're insecure. Instead of knowing their value and their worth, inside they're becoming insecure. They do not know what is here. They do not know their own value. They do not know who they are. Inside the waterfall, life had meaning and purpose. Outside, life becomes meaningless. What are they here for? Why am I here? And you know, if you go into any church, in any place, again in the world, and ask people how they are, the first thing you'll get is them saying, I'm fine. Well, that means feelings inside not expressed. I'm not telling you how I am. But actually, if you really ask people how they are deep down inside, they'll say things like, well, I don't know, I don't really feel I belong here. I'm not part of this. It's all right for you. I can see you belong, but I don't. I'm no good. I'm a failure. I'll never make it. I don't really know why I'm here. I'll just back off. And that is the pain that is within us all. Because now, because we're born into the fallen world, we all have emptiness. We all have broken relationships. The one relationship that was so important was that between the father and his children. That's the relationship where we need the sustenance of those things. Those three things, love and belonging, value and worth, meaning and purpose, were the rock on which we were born to stand, to be in relationship, first with the Father and then with each other. Outside now, relationships are fractured. What we start to do is to act independently. The fruit was of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So now I think I know best. I think I know right from wrong. I think I know what I should do. But actually those things, where do I get love and belonging from? Where do I get value and worth from, and meaning and purpose? I've got to get it from somewhere. These are not just little things. These are huge things. I'm born to have them. I'm created to have them in that relationship. If I'm not getting from God, I've got to go somewhere and get them. And there's a verse in Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 13, and it says, my people have committed two sins. They have turned away from me, the spring of living water, and they've dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. We've given up the flow of the river of water of life, that heart-to-heart waterfall of love from the Father's heart to ours. And we go searching, digging our own wells, our own cisterns, putting our buckets down, and putting things in our bucket where we think we'll feel that we're loved, that we belong, that we'll have some significance, some security. We're longing to be home and loved, and we've given it up. But of course, there's the rescue plan. And we go back to the rescue plan because God knew that his people would get into trouble. And so, as we saw in his story, he prepared all through the Old Testament a nation and individuals so that one day he would send his son, and Jesus would come back and take the weight of the sin. Because hear that, God called it sin that we go and dig our own wells. What we put our trust in instead of him is sinful. They're idols. God sent the best he had for us. He sent Jesus Christ to die on the cross, to pay the price for our sin, that he might be the bridge for us to come back into the waterfall of his love, into this place where we're back in the flow of the Spirit. We're back in the river of water of life, which where it flows, it brings life. We come back into relationship with him. We come home. The parable of the lost son is a wonderful one, where the younger son has gone off and squandered his inheritance and gone through all sorts of hardship and as a consequence, and ends up eating the food of pigs, and suddenly realizes, actually, I'm going home. And he starts off, and his father has been watching for him. And as he sees him over the horizon, this degraded, dirty, bruised, battered son, in all his filth and rags, the father is running towards him with his arms wide, flinging his arms around and saying, "You've come home, you've come home." And that is such a picture of our Father. He wants us home. He wants us to come through the cross of Jesus Christ and come back and live where we intended to live. I've come to learn that it's where you stand to live your life that counts. That what God is saying, come back and live in the place where I designed you to live, with me in my presence. As we look at the picture of the waterfall story, God is calling us back from being in the fallen world through the cross of Jesus Christ. And he's saying, come and live with me and stand in my presence. Come back and trust me for everything. That's how we were born to be, to trust God for our lives, our families, our future, our health, our finances. Come and trust me. But it's more than that. What he's saying is, come and join me in the family business. Come and work for me. Come and join me in my story. Instead of you playing God outside in the fallen world, come here. Now, it's a truth that many of us in the born-again Christians live our lives mostly out in the fallen world. And we might come across the bridge that Jesus made on a Sunday morning. And we might sing of Jesus being Lord and of all the glory of God. But actually then we go home and then the pressures of the world come upon us. Our jobs, our finances, our life, all the things that we have to do. And we forget. We take back control of our lives. We try and play God in our life and in the lives of others. And what God is saying is, come back through the cross of Jesus Christ. Come into this place. This is the place of discipleship. This is the place of commitment. This is the place of giving yourself back to God and saying, I want to walk with you. I want to be in your waterfall. I want to be in your presence. Father, will you take us forward? My experience is that when you make a commitment to live your life in this place, the whole world changes. And we'll explore those changes in the next video.